2016, Leave gets over the line. People are surprised. No one's expecting it to. Everyone's thinking Remain will get there comfortably. Some shout outs to some honourable mentions in the Brexit campaign. One was a guy called Michael Gove, a Tory MP. Another was a guy called Dominic Cummings, who didn't hold ministerial position, but was a chief of staff and was kind of behind the scenes strategist. Both of those will become really important later on. So, Michael Gove right now. So 2016 happens. David Cameron has to fall on his sword because he's put the referendum through and the British people have gone against Cameron. So he's like, I can't be the one that leads Brexit because I voted against it. I'll step down and someone else will come through. Everyone's thinking this is Boris. Everyone thinking Boris is on now.
Not yet.
Because he was the leader of Brexit, at least from the Conservative Party's perspective. And so you're thinking, well, this is Boris's chance. Boris puts his hat in the ring, but to his shock, Michael Gove, his fellow Brexiteer, goes on record and says, I think Boris Johnson will be one of the worst prime ministers we've ever had. We cannot vote for Boris. And he actually takes a whole bunch of Brexiteers away from Boris. Boris pulls out of the running. Now, in the book, and I don't know what his sources are, he didn't specify, Boris allegedly said in the car after he pulled out, I don't know if I've made the right decision. And the author of the book kind of speculates on the fact that his apprehension about pulling out then might have led to him staying in office way longer than what was expected in 2022, when people were saying he should have resigned months before he actually resigned. So Boris pulls out. You know who takes over from David Cameron? P-Wise doing the actions to a T.
Theresa May. I like how we have this good understanding of British politics through memes, basically.
Yeah, she's...
For those who can't see PY's phenomenal dance moves through this audio medium, what's the video called? Or what's she doing in that?
She's walking out to the Tory party conference, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's just real.
There's also...
it's like Peter Crouch-esque, kind of the robot sort of thing.
There's other clips of her dancing as well, though, right?
If I'm not mistaken, the context of that is she's parodying... So she was dancing in I think, Africa, yeah. And that became the first meme. And then when she walks out the second time, she's making a reference to a terrible dance moves the first time. Oh. But it's even worse the second time.
Should we watch it?
Sorry, yeah, we'll come back.
All right, so we're back. We've watched that. Key takeaways from Teresa's boogie.
It just doesn't end. Like, we just rewatched it then. For me in my head, it's a 5-second video. It goes for 50 seconds.
Yeah. She tries to hush the crowd like 4 or 5 times and they still applaud. So she dances a little more. She gives the people what they want.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like she was greatly admired by that room full of old white people.
And well, here's the interesting thing. So Theresa was a Remainer. That she was not a Brexiteer.
Yeah.
And she's now tasked with the job of getting Brexit done. And she has a factional enemy, Boris Johnson, who won the support of 52% of the people. So she is very apprehensive and very worried about Boris Johnson. And so basically, whenever you've got an internal party rival, and you're the leader, you've got 2 decisions you can make. Have them in cabinet to keep them close and keep them happy, or have them out of cabinet and kind of have them away from the power, but then they're going to be really angry and they'll be conspiring against you the whole time. Theresa May makes a pretty strange call. She makes Boris Johnson the foreign secretary, the foreign minister, effectively. Any theories behind what's in it for Theresa?
It's just leveraging his foreign correspondence skills from 20 years ago.
She rises above internal party politics, just recognises game.
Well, does it mean that she doesn't have to be the one to carry out Brexit, really, because she's not the foreign...
That's one theory.
Okay.
I don't believe that one.
Yeah.
The reason why is because there's a Brexit secretary as well.
Oh.
Yeah, effectively a minister for Brexit was around at the same time. So they would have been the ones primarily responsible. Maybe make him responsible for dealing with the other countries who are angry with Brexit. So you kind of send Boris because other countries are annoyed at Britain, make Boris have to be the one that goes to like the parties and the kind of functions. Oh yeah, sorry guys, that was me. I did that one. That wasn't Teresa. The other theory is just that because he's flying around talking to world leaders, he's not in London, so he's not chatting with other ministers and
I see.
Gaining numbers against Theresa May.
Send him away.
We do want to get to his time in office. It's 41 minutes. We haven't actually gotten him in the Prime Minister yet. So I'll skip over a whole bunch of things. The one thing I will draw attention to from his time as the Foreign Minister, do you remember England not going to the 2018 World Cup? Do you remember the kind of news story?
Yeah.
Do you remember the context behind that at all?
Like the actual English team or English fans?
The English, like, yeah, or just like England pulling out of the World Cup.
Like Russia, right?
Yeah.
Unsafe.
And there was...
They had threats, right, as well.
There were the Salisbury poisonings, where a Russian, a UK double agent was poisoned, allegedly, by Russia. And Johnson said that Russia hosting the World Cup was like Hitler hosting the 1936 Berlin Olympics. When Vladimir Putin kind of gets his song and dance. And that, his anger towards Putin there, and he's kind of branded himself as the guy that stands up to Putin. That's going to be really important at the back end of his time in office. Fast forward to 28 after the World Cup. Theresa May basically comes up with a plan for Brexit. It's called the Chequers Plan. I didn't really understand it. I tried to read the report. Jeremy Corbyn called it a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I kind of agree with him. Oh, other than that, I'm also probably just too stupid to understand it. But basically, the kind of key thing to take away was that it was what we call a soft Brexit, where there's still a lot of connection with the EU, as opposed to a hard Brexit, which was break ties with the EU. And so that actually doesn't get through the Conservative Party, and the Tories don't support the Chequers Plan. Not good for Theresa May.
No.
She was the one tasked with getting Brexit done, and she can't get Brexit done.
Probably not quite as jovial as she was at the
Yeah.
speech that we saw.
So she decides to resign and step down as Prime Minister in 2019. I will also add that, 2015 was when David Cameron had an election. It is convention to have an election every 5 years in Britain. Theresa May called an early election in 2017 against Jeremy Corbyn, and they lost a lot of seats. They hung on by a thread, but they lost a lot of seats to Labour. And so Theresa May was seen as a pretty big liability within the Conservative Party. So she resigns. Boris Johnson throws his hat in the ring and he wins easily, hands down, smashes it. And Boris wins on the promise that I will get Brexit done. It will be sorted by October. I think Theresa May stood down in maybe like June, July, something like that.
Ooh.
And Boris is like, I'll get it done by October. If the EU doesn't like it, we'll leave with no deal. And Brexit will be done and will be sorted by October, and we will leave by January. That was his promise. Slight issue for Boris, though. There were a number of Tories who didn't like no-deal Brexit and would not have voted in favour of a no-deal Brexit. Boris wanted them out, and he wanted them dealt with. So again, convention. How often is a UK election again?
5 years.
5 years. 2019, how long has it been since the last election?
4 years.
No.
Or 2 years.
I think
Because there
years.
was one in
Oh, yeah.
2017.
Bro.
So,
Let's keep up.
Boris.
So does that that restarts the cycle, right?
Yeah, it restarts the cycle.
Yeah. Well,
Boris-
that's annoying because they were in 5 year. That was like 2015.
I know.
2020.
Like,
Why have they?
really really made it asymmetrical. And so Boris calls another one and he's like, we're on again here, another early election. And basically his campaign.
So you can just have an election whenever you want.
You can. But it's like, maximum period you can wait is 5. And it's generally considered poor form to constantly call early elections because it's destabilizing, it's quick turnover.
Not in the spirit of politics.
Surely Stuart Broad's got something to say about that.
When Stuart Broad enters Parliament, can I go? I'm just checking. Can I go today? Okay, cool. And so he calls one in 2019, and his election platform is get Brexit done so that we can move on, and vote the Tory party in so that we can get the no deal Brexiteers in, get Brexit done, get it sorted with, then we can move on with our agenda. Boris Johnson smashes Jeremy Corbyn at this one.
Yeah, okay.
It was a huge swing against Corbyn.
presumably. So even I guess if Labour were voted in, though, even though they would originally not wanted Brexit, they would have to have had to carry it out.
Yeah, Corbyn was actually probably more pro-Brexit than Theresa May was, personally,
Okay.
I reckon.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, like the will of the people's been voted.
Yeah.
Like it'd be very unpopular for Labor to be like, we're not going to do what
Yeah.
what 52% of people voted to do. Yeah. So they would have carried it out. They would have probably had a softer Brexit rather than a hard Brexit. But Corbyn kind of had a lot of issues with the EU. And so Corbyn gets smashed and Boris is like the really popular, the Mayor of London's back to save Britain here. The issue was it probably wasn't a reflection on Boris's popularity, but a reflection on Corbyn's lack of popularity.